Chapter 5 of 7 Footprints to Satan by A. Merritt. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Ben Tucker. The two sentences tingled in my brain as though charged with electricity. Absurd as they might have sounded under any other circumstances, here they were as far removed from absurdity as anything I have ever known. Those lashless, intensely alive blue eyes and the immobile face were satanic. I had long sensed the diabolic touch in every experience I had undergone that night. In the stillness of the huge body, in the strangeness of the organ-piped voice that welled expressionless from the almost still lips, was something diabolic too. As though the body were but an automaton in which dwelt some infernal spirit, some alien being that made itself manifest through eyes and voice only. That my host was the exact opposite of the long, lank, dark Mephisto of opera, play, and story made him only the more terrifying. And it has long been my experience that fat men are capable of far greater deviltries than thin men. No, this man who bade me call him Satan had nothing of the absurd about him. I acknowledged to myself that he was dreadful. A bell rang, a mellow note. A light pulsed on a wall. A panel slid aside, and Considine stepped into the room. Vaguely I noted that the panel was a different one than that through which the Manchu butler had gone. At the same time I recalled, aimlessly it seemed, that I had seen no stairway leading up from the great hall. And on the heels of that was the recollection that I had noticed neither windows nor doors in the bedroom to which I had been conducted by the valet. The thoughts came and went without my mind then taking in their significance. That was to come later. I arose, returning Considine's bow. He seated himself without salutation or ceremony at Satan's right. "I have been telling James Kirkham how entertaining I have found him," said my host. "And I," smiled Considine. "But I am afraid my companions did not. Cobham was quite upset. That was really cruel of you, Kirkham. Vanity is one of Cobham's besetting sins." So Walter's name was Cobham. What was Eve's, I wonder? "Your stratagem of the ragdoll was demoralizing," I said. "I thought I was rather restrained in my observations upon Mr. Cobham. There was so much more opportunity, you know. And after all, so much provocation." "The ragdoll was a diverting idea," observed Satan, "and effective." "Diabolically so," I spoke to Considine. "But I find that was to have been expected. Just before you entered, I discovered that I have been dining with Satan." "Ah, yes," said Considine coolly. "And you are no doubt expecting me to produce a lancet and open a vein in your wrist while Satan puts in front of you a document written in brimstone and orders you to sign away your soul in blood." "I am expecting no such childish thing," I replied with some show of indignation. Satan chuckled. His face did not move, but his eyes danced. "Obsolete methods," he said. "I gave them up after my experiences with the late Dr. Faustus." "Perhaps," Considine addressed me blandly, "you think I may be the late Dr. Faustus. No, or if so, Kirkham," he looked at me slyly, "Eve is not Marguerite." "Let us say not your Marguerite," amended Satan. I felt the blood rush up into my face, and again Satan chuckled. They were playing with me, these two. Yet, under that play, the sinister note persisted, not to be mistaken. I felt uncomfortably like a mouse between a pair of cats. I had a sudden vision of the girl as just another helpless mouse. "No," it was Satan's sonorous voice. "No, I have become more modern. I still buy souls, it is true, or take them, but I am not so rigorous in my terms as of old. I now also lease souls for certain periods. I pay well for such leases, James Kirkham." "Is it not time that you ceased treating me like a child?" I asked coldly. "I admit all that you have said of me. I believe all that you have said of yourself. I concede that you are Satan. Very well. What then?" There was a slight pause. Considine lighted a cigar, poured himself some brandy, and pushed aside a candle that stood between us, so I thought that he could have a clearer view of my face. Satan, for the first time, turned his eyes away from me, looking over my head. I had come to the third stage of this mysterious game. did you ever hear the legend of the 7 shining footsteps of Buddha?" he asked me. I shook my head. "It was that which made me change my ancient methods of snaring souls," he said gravely, "since it caused the beginning of a new infernal epoch. The legend is important, but it is important to you for other reasons as well. So listen. When the Lord Buddha Gautama, the enlightened one," he intoned, "was about to be born, he was seen gleaming like a jewel of living light in his mother's womb. So filled with light was he that he made of her body a lantern, himself the holy flame." For the first time there was expression in the voice, a touch of sardonic unctuousness. "And when the time came for him to be delivered, he stepped forth from his mother's side, which miraculously closed behind him. 7 footsteps the infant Buddha took before he halted for the worship of the Devis, genii, rishis, and all the heavenly hierarchy that had gathered round. 7 shining footsteps they were, 7 footsteps that gleamed like stars upon the soft greensward. And lo, even as Buddha was being worshipped, those shining footsteps of his stirred and moved and marched away, beginning the opening of the paths which later the Holy One would traverse. 7 interesting little John the Baptist going before him. Ho, 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 laughed Satan from unchanged face and motionless lips. West went one and east went one, he continued, one north and one south, opening up the paths of deliverance to the whole 4 quarters of the globe. But what of the other 3? Ah, alas, Mars, the king of illusion, had watched with apprehension the advent of Buddha, because the light of Buddha's words would be a light in which only the truth had shadow, and by it would be rendered useless the snares by which mankind, or the most of it, was held in thrall by Mara. If Buddha conquered, Mara would be destroyed. The king of illusion did not take kindly to the idea, since his supreme enjoyment was in wielding power and being entertained. In that, commented Satan, apparently quite seriously, Mara was much like me, but in intelligence much inferior, because he did not realize that truth, aptly manipulated, creates far better illusions than do lies. However, before those laggard 3 could get very far away, Mara had captured them. And then, by wile and artifice and sorcery, Mara seduced them. He taught them naughtiness, schooled them in delicious deceptions, and he sent them forth to wander. What happened? Well, naturally, men and women followed the 3. The paths they picked out were so much pleasanter, so much more delectable, so much softer and more fragrant and beautiful than the stony, hard, austere, cold trails broken by the incorruptible 4. Who could blame people for following them? And besides, superficially, all 7 footprints were alike. The difference, of course, was in the ending. Those souls who followed the 3 deceitful prints were inevitably led back into the heart of error, the inner lair of illusion, and were lost there, while those who followed the 4 were freed. And more followed the naughty prince, while Mara waxed joyful, until it seemed that there would be none left to take the paths of enlightenment. But now Buddha grew angry. He sent forth a command, and back to him from the 4 quarters of the world came hurrying the shining, holy quartet. They tracked down the erring 3 and made them prisoners. Now arose a problem. Since the erring 3 were of Buddha, they could not be destroyed. They had their rights, inalienable. But so deep had been their defilement by Mara, they could not be cleansed of their wickedness. So they were imprisoned for as long as the world shall last, somewhere near the great temple of Borobudur in Java. There is a smaller hidden temple. In it is a throne. To reach that throne one must climb 7 steps. On each of these steps gleams one of Buddha's 7 baby footprints. Each looks precisely like the other, but oh, how different they are. 4 are the holy ones, guarding the wicked 3. The temple is secret, the way to it beset with deadly perils. He who lives through them and enters that temple may climb to the throne. But as he climbs, he must set his foot on 5 of those shining prints. Now after he has done this, hear what must befall. If of those 5 steps he has taken, he has set his feet upon the 3 naughty prints, behold, when he reaches the throne, all of earthly desire, all that the king of illusion can give him, is his for the wishing. To the enslavement and possible destruction of his soul, naturally. But if of the 5, 3 have been the holy prince, then is he freed of all earthly desire, freed of all illusion, free of the wheel, a bearer of the light, a vessel of wisdom, his soul one with the pure one eternally. Saint or sinner, if he steps on the 3 unholy footprints, all worldly illusions are his willy-nilly. And sinner or saint, if he treads on 3 of the holy footprints, he is freed of all illusion, a blessed soul forever in nirvana. Poor devil, murmured Considine. Such is legend. Satan turned his gaze upon me again. Now, I never tried to collect those interesting footprints. They could have served no purpose of mine. I have no desire to turn sinners into saints, for one thing. But they gave me the most entertaining idea I have had for, shall I say, centuries. Life, James Kirkham, is one long gamble between the 2 inexorable gambles of birth and death. All men and all women are gamblers, although most are very poor ones. All men and all women have at least one desire during their lives for which they would willingly stake their souls, and often even their lives. But life is such a crude game, haphazardly directed, if directed at all, and with such confusing, conflicting, contradictory, and tawdry rules. Very well, I would improve the game for a chosen few, gamble with them for their great desire, and for my own amusement, would use as my model these 7 footsteps of Buddha. And now, James Kirkham, listen intently, for this directly concerns you. I constructed 2 thrones upon a dais, up to which lead not 7 but 21 steps. On each 3rd step there shines out a footprint, 7 of them in all. One of the thrones is lower than the other. Upon that I sit. On the other rests a crown and a scepter. Now then, 3 of these footsteps are unfortunate. 4 are fortunate in the aggregate. He who would gamble with me must climb to that throne on which are crown and scepter. In climbing he must place a foot on 4, not 5 of these 7 prints. Should those 4 upon which he steps prove to be the fortunate ones, that man may have every desire satisfied as long as he lives. I am his servant, and his servant is all that vast organization which I have created and which serves me. His my billions do as he pleases with. His my masterpieces. His anything that he covets. Power, women, rule, anything. What he hates I punish or remove. His is the crown and scepter upon that throne higher than mine. It is power over earth. He may have everything. I glanced at Considine. He was nervously bending and unbending a silver knife in his strong fingers, his eyes glittering. But if he treads on the others? Ah, that is my end of the gamble. If he treads upon the first of my 3, he must do me one service, whatever I bid him. If he treads on 2, he must do my bidding for a year. They are my minor leases. But if he treads on all my 3, I felt the blaze of the blue eyes scorch me, heard a muffled groan from Considine. If he treads on all my 3, then he is mine, body and soul, to kill at once, if it is my mood, and in what slow ways I please, to live if I please, as long as I please, and then to die, again as I please. Mine, body and soul, mine. The rolling voice trumpeted, grew dreadful. Satanic enough was he now, with those weird eyes blazing at me as though behind them were flames from that very pit whose master's name he had taken. "There are a few rules to remember." The voice abruptly regained its calm. "One need not take the whole 4 steps. You may stop if you desire at 1, or 2, or 3. You need not take the next step. If you take 1 step and it is mine, and go no further, then you do my service, are well paid for it, and after it is done may ascend the steps again. So if you go further and touch the 2nd of my steps, after your year, if you are alive, you again have your chance, and are well paid during that year." I considered. Power over all the world. Every desire granted. An Aladdin's lamp to rub. Not for a moment did I doubt that this, whatever he was, could do what he promised. "I will explain the mechanism," he said. "Obviously, the relative positions of the 7 steps cannot remain the same in each essay. Their combination would be too easy to learn. That combination I leave to chance. Not even I know it. Through that, I get the cream of my entertainment. I sit upon my throne. I touch a lever that spins a hidden wheel over which roll 7 balls, 3 marked for my steps, 4 marked for the fortunate ones. As those balls settle into place, they form an electrical contact with the 7 footprints. As the balls lie, so lie the prints. Where I can see, and others if they are present, but not to be seen by the climber of the steps, is an indicator. As the aspirant sets his foot on the prints, this indicator shows whether he has picked one of my 3 or one of his 4. And there is one final rule. When you climb, you may not look back at that indicator. You must take the next step in ignorance of whether that from which you have come was good for you or evil. If you do weaken and look behind, you must descend and begin your climb anew." "But it seems to me that you have the better end of the game," I observed. "Suppose one steps upon a fortunate step and stops. What does he get?" "Nothing," he answered, "but the chance to take the next. You forget, James Kirkham, that what he stands to win is immeasurably greater than what I win if he loses. Winning, he wins me in all I stand for. Losing, I win only 1 man, or 1 woman. Besides, for my limited leases, I pay high, and give protection." I nodded. As a matter of fact, I was profoundly stirred. Everything that I had experienced had been carefully calculated to set my imagination on fire. I thrilled at the thought of what I might not be able to do with, well, admit he was Satan, and his power at my beck and call. He watched me imperturbably, Considine understandingly with a shadow of pity in his eyes. "Look here," I said abruptly. "Please clear up a few more things. Suppose I refuse to play this game of yours. What happens to me?" "You will be set back in Battery Park tomorrow," he answered. "Your double will be withdrawn from your club. You will find he has done no harm to your reputation. You may go your way, but—" "I thought, sir, there was a but," I murmured. "But I will be disappointed," he went on quietly. "I do not like to be disappointed. I am afraid your affairs would not prosper. It might even be that I would find you such a constant reproach, such a living reminder of a flaw in my judgment that—" "I understand," I interrupted. "The living reminder would strangely cease some day to be a reminder. Living." He did not speak, but surely I read the answer in his eyes. "And what is to prevent me from taking your challenge?" I asked again, going partly through with it, enough to get away from here, and then, "Betray me?" Again the chuckle came through the motionless lips. "Your efforts would come to nothing. And as for you, better for you, James Kirkham, had you remained unborn. I, Satan, tell you so." The blue eyes scorched. About him in his chair seemed to grow a shadow, enveloping him. From him emanated something diabolic, something that gripped my throat and checked the very pulse of my heart. "I, Satan, tell you so," he repeated. There was a little pause in which I strove to regain my badly shaken poise. Again the bell sounded. "It is time," said Considine. But I noticed that he had paled, knew my own face was white. "It happens," the organ-like voice was calm again. "It happens that you have an opportunity to see what becomes of those who try to thwart me. I will ask you to excuse certain precautions which it will be necessary to take. You will not be harmed, only it is essential that you remain silent and motionless, and that none read your face while you see what you are going to see." Considine arose. I followed him. The man who called himself Satan lifted himself from his chair. Huge I had guessed him to be, but I was unprepared for the giant that he was. I am all of 6 feet, and he towered over me a full 12 inches. Involuntarily I looked at his feet. "Ah," he said suavely, "you are looking for my cloven hoof. Come, you are about to see it." He touched the wall. A panel slipped away, revealing a wide corridor, not long, and windowless and doorless. He leading, Considine behind me, Satan walked a few yards and pressed against the wainscoting. It slid back soundlessly. He stepped through. I walked after him and halted, staring blankly into one of the most singular rooms, chambers? No, temple is the only word that its size and character deserve to describe it. I stood staring, I repeat, into one of the most singular temples that probably man's eyes had ever looked upon. End of chapter 5.